In China, you know, the emperor is Chinese and all his subjects are Chinese. The story that I'm about to tell you happened a long, long time ago, and for that very reason, it should be told. On my travels to China, I visited an area called the Forbidden City. Can you say that? Right. It was where the Emperor of China once lived. He had the most beautiful palace in all the world. It was made of the finest porcelain, and you had to be very careful as you moved about in it. Now, surrounding that palace was a beautiful garden. The garden was full of flowers, and on some of those flowers there were tiny little silver bells. And that garden was so large that the gardener himself did not know the full extent of it. If you kept walking long enough, you came to a wonderful forest with great big trees that reached all the way down to the deep blue sea. Now, some of those branches hung out over the water, and it was there in that forest where the most enchanting nightingale lived. The nightingale sang so sweetly that even the poor fisherman, who was very busy, would stop to listen as he drew his nets in at night. Now, many travelers have written stories about the emperor's palace and his beautiful garden, but they have all kept their highest praise for the nightingale.
China, safe behind my porcelain walls. Here I am, the Emperor of China, dressed in my robes and golden stoles. My day starts in the morning here at my window to gaze at my beautiful garden. Then soon after 8, it's affairs of the state where the peasants come begging my pardon. Then I sit on my throne with a terrible groan. As I'm starved, so I summon my cook. Then soon after eating, you'll see me retreating as I call for my treasures and books. For here in my books I find no greater pleasure than what travelers have written about all my treasure. Reading books about my wonderful possessions gives me such pleasure. I own everything there is to own. Who could want more? They say my palace is most exquisite. Ah, yes, and here they're describing my lovely garden and forest of great trees. But what is this about a nightingale? The nightingale sings so sweetly that she is the loveliest thing of all. The nightingale? I have never heard of her. Why, This is just the sort of thing one can only find out from reading books. To think that there is such a bird in my garden and no one has ever told me about her. It is positively disgraceful. Chamberlain!
You called, Your Imperial Majesty?
Chamberlain, I understand there is a highly remarkable bird in my garden called the Nightingale. They say her singing is the most beautiful thing in my whole empire. Why has no one told me about her?
Oh, I've never heard of the Nightingale. She's not been presented at court, Your Majesty. I'm sure of that.
I want her to come here this very evening and sing for me.
But, Your Imperial Majesty, I've never heard of such a creature. This Nightingale must be some fantastic story invented by the people who wrote these books. Your Majesty shouldn't believe everything that these writers say. It is often mostly pure imagination.
But I read this in a book sent to me by the High and Mighty Emperor of Japan.
Oh, dear.
Therefore, it must be true.
Oh, my.
I decree that the Nightingale shall be here this very evening. Should you fail to produce her, you and the rest of the courtiers will all get your stomachs punched immediately after supper.
Sing, Peh. We've got to search the palace to find this bird, or the emperor will have our stomachs punched. This nightingale must be found before the night is out, or we'll all be forced to lose our lunch. We've got to search the palace to find this bird, or the emperor will have our stomachs punched. This nightingale must be found before the night is out, or we'll all be forced to lose our lunch.
This Nightingale must be found before the night is out, or we'll all be forced to lose our lunch.
This nightingale must be found before the night is out, or we'll all be forced to lose our lunch.
Neither the chamberlain nor any of the servants or courtiers knew anything about the nightingale. So they searched up and down through all the corridors of the palace, asking everyone if they've heard of this bird. When at last they found a poor little girl working in the palace kitchen who said,
Oh, I know the nightingale, and I've often heard her sing.
Little kitchen maid, if you would take us to the Nightingale, I could promise you a permanent position in the palace, and would even allow you to watch the emperor eat his dinner.
So accompanied by half the court, the kitchen maid led the chamberlain through the garden and the great forest all the way down to the sea. After they had been walking for a while, they heard,
I hear her. What a powerful voice for such a little creature.
I believe that's only a cow mooing. We still have a good way to go.
Ribbit, ribbit, ribbit. Oh, there it is. She sounds lovely, just like bells.
Those are the frogs croaking. But we ought to hear the nightingale soon. That's the nightingale. Listen, she's up there. Do you see her?
Is it possible? She's a rather plain-looking bird, isn't she? So drab and ordinary. Perhaps the sight of us has caused her to lose her color.
Little Nightingale, our gracious Emperor would like to hear you sing.
Most excellent Nightingale, it is my extreme pleasure to invite you to appear at court this evening, where you will delight His Imperial Majesty with your enchanting song.
The nightingale agreed most willingly because it was the emperor's wish. The rest of that day, there was a great deal of bustling and hurrying to get the palace ready for the concert that night.
Did you hear?
Did you hear?
Did you hear?
Did you hear? The nightingale is coming, and all the court is humming. We must prepare the palace for the show.
By order of the Chamberlain,
We'll polish all the porcelain
until the floors and walls begin to glow.
We'll decorate and make things straight.
We'll curtsy,
Bow, enunciate, we'll water all the plants so they can grow. Oh, the nightingale is coming, and all the court is humming. She'll sing so sweetly, notes from high to low. We've really got to get to work.
and set her little golden perch.
The kitchen maid can watch from the window.
It's time to start the nightingale is coming, the nightingale is coming, the nightingale is coming.
Sing pair, let's go!
Chamberlain, call for the nightingale. Most precious bird, your song brings tears to my eyes and has melted my heart. Which of my many treasures will you accept in gratitude for such wonderful music?
To see the tears an emperor sheds in praise of me, no greater joy could there ever be. For a bird as plain to see as me, no greater gift than the magic of your tears has ever thankfully been brought to me.
Very well. Then I decree the nightingale shall remain at court and live in the palace, as she is our most valued possession.
Oh, that nightingale has such an enchanting voice. What a delightful way to flirt.
Yes, we must learn to sing this way.
No, this is the way it sounds.
Stop! You sound perfectly ridiculous.
So do you.
Ladies, please. It is most unseemly to carry on in such a manner.
Although no one in the court saw, a tear fell from the emperor's eye when he first heard the nightingale's beautiful song. Never in his life has his heart been touched so deeply. Fearing that the nightingale might fly away, he had a cage of gold built for her, and she was granted permission to go out only twice during the day and once at night. But she had to be accompanied by 2 courtiers who each held tightly to a silk ribbon fastened to her leg so as to prevent her from flying off through the forest on her own. He called the nightingale his most valued possession. But for the nightingale, life in the palace was not as sweet and joyous as it was in the forest. She no longer had her freedom, and freedom is what made her heart sing.
The nightingale's song seems sad, wouldn't you say?
She certainly does not sound as bright and cheerful as she once did.
It's odd. She has everything she could possibly want living in the palace.
I know. Something must be wrong.
I agree. Something must be wrong.
It's very sad.
It's terrible.
I don't know what to do.
I feel terrible for her, too.
I feel so sad.
Ah, my nightingale, sing for me. Nightingale, your song, it does not lift my spirits and touch my heart as it once did. Although still pretty, perhaps you are tired from your flights through the garden with the courtiers. We may have to shorten them, so you'll have more time to rest in your gold cage. Yes, and that way be better prepared to perform when I request it. We are through, Nightingale. You may go.
The poor little nightingale always tried to sing at her best, especially for the emperor. But the rules and restrictions of life in the palace were beginning to take its toll on her happiness and her singing. And so, life in the palace went on just this way, until one day...
Your Imperial Majesty, a large parcel has arrived. Shall I present it to you?
I suspect it is a new book about our famous bird. Oh, what a splendid creature, encrusted with diamonds, rubies, and sapphires. What noble person has sent such a gift?
I believe there's a note, Your Majesty. The Emperor of Japan's nightingale is a poor thing compared with the Emperor of China's nightingale. And here is a key, Your Majesty, to wind the bird.
How marvelous! This bird sounds as lovely as our own nightingale. We must hear the two birds sing together. Such a duet will surely be sublime and should prove to be magnificent. Bring in the nightingale.
So they sang together, the nightingale in her own free way, and the music box sounding like a musical instrument.
That sounds dreadful. Why, I don't think they match at all. Oh, it hurts my ears to listen. It pains me.
Chamberlain, I thought they would sound better singing together. Is there something you can do?
Well, the new mechanical bird is in no way to blame, Your Majesty. It keeps perfect time and obeys all the rules of musical method. As you can see from these diagrams, this outer layer of jewels covers the most delicate and intricate of machines. Everything can be explained logically. All the pieces fit together perfectly, allowing it to sing. It has been made to sound the exact same way each time you play it, and there are no unexpected surprises. Whereas the real nightingale is totally unpredictable. She sings her songs differently each time, and there is no way of knowing what you are going to hear.
And this bird is so much more beautiful to look at. See how it sparkles and shimmers?
We shall have it sing again.
The mechanical bird sang its one and only tune 33 times without ever getting tired. The courtiers would have liked to hear it more. But the emperor felt it was time to hear the real nightingale sing again.
Very nice. But now we should like to hear the nightingale sing. Where is the nightingale?
She appears to have flown away, Your Imperial Majesty. The ungrateful bird.
Well, I think we still have the better of the two birds after all.
Yes, that is true. We don't need that jealous bird. I hereby banish the nightingale forever. Never more will she be welcome in my land. Bring the new bird to my bedchamber. It shall have a place of honor beside my bed.
The nightingale flew away. She was saddened by the unkind words of the chamberlain and the people of the court, as her only wish had been to bring joy to the emperor. On the very next Sunday, the chamberlain was told to demonstrate the jeweled bird to the common people.
It is my great honor to present to you a gift we have received from the Emperor of Japan. Ladies and gentlemen, our most precious and bejeweled mechanical nightingale.
I think it's beautiful.
Oh, I agree. Yes, a wonderful sound and much prettier than the real nightingale.
I was thinking that too.
They were very delighted with the concert. But the poor fisherman who had heard the real nightingale sing said,
Yes, it is pretty enough, and a fairly good imitation, but something is missing. I can't quite explain just what it is.
I think it's beautiful.
Oh, I agree.
Yes, a wonderful sound and much prettier than the real nightingale.
I was thinking that too.
An entire year had passed, and all seemed well until one evening, when the mechanical bird was singing, something went ping. There was a great whirring of wheels, a clunk, and broken springs popped out. The song stopped.
Chamberlain, get the watchmaker. Something terrible has happened to my beautiful bird. Summon the watchmaker. It must be fixed quickly. Chamberlain, do you have news of our bird? Is the watchmaker able to repair it?
After a long and extensive examination, the watchmaker believes he can repair the mechanical bird fairly well. But he has warned it should not be played too often, as the parts are worn out and it is impossible to replace them. It is a tragic state of affairs.
Very well. We shall look at the royal calendar and choose one day out of the year to have the bird sing for us.
Yes, Your Majesty.
"5 years passed by, and the emperor became very sick. The doctor said he hadn't very long to live. Because of this, the whole country was sad and heavy with grief. The emperor lay in his magnificent bed, so cold and pale that the courtiers thought he was already dead, and they all dashed off to select a new emperor. The common people stood outside the palace gate, waiting for news of the emperor's health. The palace was as quiet as a tomb, but the emperor was not dead yet. Hardly able to move, he felt as if there was a great weight on his chest, and a ghostly figure seemed to appear to him.
Emperor, Emperor, it's time, Emperor.
Death was very near, and as a sign that it was time for him to leave this life, he took the emperor's sword and crown.
I've come for you, Emperor. It's time for you to go. Emperor.
Stop! Stop! Music, strike up the great gong and drown out these voices. Music, please. Precious jeweled bird, sing to me now. I implore you, sing. I have showered you with gifts and favors. Sing for me now.
Emperor, it's
But the bird was silent.
Emperor.
It couldn't sing unless it was wound up, and there was no one there to wind
It's
it.
time.
Then suddenly, through the window came the sound of an exquisite song.
Emperor.
It was the real living nightingale. She had heard that the emperor was dying,
Emperor.
so she came to comfort him. As she sang, the whispers faded. The color returned to the emperor's cheeks and face. Death himself stopped to listen to her sweet song and asked the little bird to keep on singing.
If you allow the emperor to live, I'll sing for you, and you must give up the emperor's sword and crown.
So Death agreed to let the emperor live, and he returned the emperor's sword and crown. The nightingale sang of the peaceful graveyard where people go to mourn their lost loved ones. As Death listened, he was filled with a longing to be back in his own garden, and he soon vanished like a cold, white mist.
Oh, you heavenly bird, how I prayed for your return, and your song cast the darkness from my heart. How shall I thank you and do my part?
You gave a gift that I will always prize. When I first sang, I saw the tears of joy fall from your eyes.
I wish you to stay in the palace once again and sing for me.
I cannot make my home inside your palace, but I will come from time to time and sing outside your window.
Then just sit and sing me your wondrous tales as your freedom allows you to fly far out beyond my gardens and waterfalls, so to tell me of secrets I'll never find inside these walls. Oh, nightingale, nightingale, sing me a dream, lull me to sleep with your song. Sing me the laughter and joy of my youth. Sing me a dream. Sing me a song of when I was strong.
I'll sing for you, but you must promise me not to tell a single living soul that you have a little bird that tells you everything.
As you wish, my dear nightingale, and thank you. If freedom is what makes you sing, then freedom is what you shall have. the still of the dawn, I hear a nightingale sing. Sing me your
The emperor ruled for many more years. Joy returned to the land, but most importantly, joy returned to the heart of the emperor and the nightingale. You see, the nightingale had her friend and her freedom back, and the emperor learned one of the greatest lessons of life. If you truly love something, you must allow it to be whatever it dreams of being. And that is the story of the emperor and the nightingale.
Thank you for coming. A big round of applause for you. Sit down, please. I'd like to introduce you to the puppeteers, David Jacob